Well, huge warm welcome to the Laughing Couple. We are so excited to have you on the Midweek Pump podcast.
Thanks.
And how we want to start this off is, you guys are a couple. You have your own very successful podcast. We're a couple. We have our own podcast. And what we want to start this off with is,
She calls me wife.
and
I call her wife.
I love
we're
you.
a couple.
And you're annoying.
Yes.
I love you. And you're annoying because when you tell me you're going to be at my place for a certain time, you actually never arrive at that time. And that is really annoying. And I love you.
I got that.
Like how late is it?
It's like typically minimum 15 minutes or more.
No,
Yes, it is.
no.
Yes, it is. Today it was about 20. So,
What are you talking about?
Anyway.
Just fashionably late for you.
That's right.
So that's great.
Yeah.
Well, I love you and you're annoying because you continuously like to interrupt my sentences.
This is true.
But we just let it go. We just let it go.
This is true. I do this. I definitely do this. Yeah.
It happens.
Yes.
I definitely interrupt.
It
everybody.
happens.
Yeah.
So welcome, guys.
It's so nice to be honest with each other.
Right. Love,
Yes,
love.
It's so beautiful.
The annoyance just
There
disappears.
you go.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a little I love you and you're annoying for today?
Oh, for
Or
today?
you're done for the day.
I mean, I always have one. And it's the reoccurring one, so I could pull it up right now. But I don't have one specific that's happened.
Yeah, I got
today.
one today. Brittany, I love you. I love you and you're annoying. And I'll tell you why.
All right.
You seem to let people know that I don't like doing dishes, but that's not true. I don't like doing dishes that I had no part in.
Oh,
You're
that's
literally gonna
valid.
dig yourself a grave
I don't
right now.
like
Oh,
I don't
sweet.
like coming and doing the dishes in the evening and then doing the dishes from lunch and breakfast. That's my only issue. I love you and you're annoying.
I've changed mine.
Oh,
Mine is, so I'll have like a coffee cup or something in the day, or maybe the kids' meals. I didn't eat off of those kids' plates, but I freaking made those meals. And so those are also your children that you're washing from. And I'm pretty sure yesterday I washed not one, but two of your coffee mugs. So you can eat crow right now because that's not
Mom slam.
fair.
Well, this exercise is not supposed to be mean.
I'm not being mean, but your I love you and you're annoying is invalid.
All right.
Invalidated.
Fair. Yeah.
There. Perfect.
Cancels out.
Cancel.
All right.
Totally cancel.
Cancel.
Well, just to give everyone some context here, this is the way Brittany and Ryan introduce their podcast every week. It's such a fun,
Intro.
platform and what they've got going on. Please, guys, why don't you tell us a little bit about what had you start your podcast and where you're at right now? Because I'm pretty sure you're number one in Canada,
All of Canada.
and the US or something like that. So please share. We're so excited to have you on here.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Well, a little bit of a background, as the two of you know, things were going really well business-wise for us. We were growing, we were expanding. Brittany had her Instagram, the Boss to Fee account that was growing and it was expanding. Everything was going in the right direction, but her and I, we weren't going in a right direction, or I should say the direction.
We were going in a direction together.
Together.
We were directionally going, just not.
Yeah.
together.
We were directionally
Yeah.
going.
We were parallel.
We were just
We were just
not in the
over here.
same
Parallel.
direction.
This is actually
Yeah.
a math. This is a math question.
Yeah.
We were
If
parallel.
one train is going at 90 miles an
Yes.
hour and the other train is going at
Please
120,
find X.
Can
in
we
the
get
same
Riley's
direction-
teacher in this? Riley's teacher, please come and mediate this.
Oh my God.
so long story short, we knew that we wanted to create something together. We didn't know what that something was together. I entered a program, a personal development program with the two of you, a team management leadership program, and inside that we
By
learned how to,
who?
the team management
What's
leadership
the company?
program.
What's the company, please?
That's
Please
Landmark.
give them a shout out.
Landmark
Oh,
Communication.
okay.
Yeah.
Landmark
Just-
Worldwide.
Really quick
Little
side note.
quick side note.
Legit, every person we've interviewed, except for maybe one or two on this podcast, has been a graduate of Landmark, not on purpose.
Not on purpose, not
just,
planned.
we just flocked together, and
Well, you got two
now
here.
it's, and
Yeah.
we've got this joke where we're like, oh, we're sponsored. We're not sponsored by Landmark, but it's so funny that everyone brings it up, like how we know each other.
And it's not even we plan it in the
No.
conversation and obviously creating the relatedness part. It's like, yeah, so when we did Landmark and we learned this distinction, we're like, okay,
Yeah.
everything is really about promoting Landmark.
Yeah.
And we're,
Mhm.
guys, we're not here to
Yeah,
promote Landmark. We're
not
not
here.
And we're
enrolled.
here.
We're here.
So
Yeah.
in the middle of this Landmark course,
Yeah.
we learned how to unfold, create, and speculate what there is to speculate. Brittany and I sat down and we talked about the idea of expanding on the platform that she had and how I could somehow find a way to get into that space. And we landed on the idea concept of a podcast, and we threw that around for a little while. Flash forward, March 2020. Global pandemic hit. We went 5 straight days of talking
Sounds
about,
interesting.
5 days straight of talking about how negative the world is and how bad it's going to be and all of that fun stuff. And Brittany and I sat down one night and said, if we are talking like this, what are the other households talking about? I said, I'm tired. 5 days into this, I'm tired of having this conversation. Let's have a conversation that actually does something inside our household that brings value to us. And we landed on laughter is the one thing that was really missing in our relationship. And so we created an entire podcast that was designed for her and I to meet once a week and laugh together. And it became the Laughing Couple podcast. We launched that in April of 2020, shortly after the pandemic hit. And maybe the timing was just right.
Mhm.
The conversation was just right. There were people that were at home. There were people that were at home with their spouses who were seeing this conflict that was occurring. And we spoke openly about it. And it took off. Yeah. So we were fortunate enough. We did hit #1 in Canada and #1 in the US for family, parents, and relationships. So that's pretty cool.
That's so
Wow.
awesome.
Amazing, guys. Amazing.
Yeah, and you guys talk about like a really, actually even like us not being parents, like I tune in and it's still
Very
topics that are so relevant, right? And like so just relatable, and guests that you have on are so interesting. So why don't you give us just like a little bit of context of what it's about and like what you got, how you guys create your content and stuff like that.
We've been super fortunate in terms of our guests coming on, just because I think that we had a baseline of this community who followed my Instagram, which is amazing because they kind of just came with us to the next step to the podcast. But we have been really fortunate because we've had some incredible relationships built throughout that platform, and professionals anywhere from like sex therapists to money experts to parenting experts who reached out to us to offer their expertise. And our biggest joke is like we're what do we say? Or we're happy.
This is our biggest
This
joke.
is our biggest joke, and I don't even know what
The biggest joke.
I'm like,
we don't know what
we're
the joke is, but this is the one we say all the time.
No, I mean like our thing on our website says we're
Experts at nothing.
we're experts at nothing, but we're happy as hell. So we want to bring in other
love
people to
that.
help. I mean,
That's beautiful.
we feel like we're pretty good parents, but everybody can learn
Yeah, I think I'm a good
everything.
dad.
And
Of
we have a
course.
pretty great relationship, but there's always work you can put in. And just because your relationship is good doesn't mean it can't be better. And I think that's something that we continue to kind of encourage people to do. Like it's you're constantly checking in, you're constantly working on your relationship. Everyone's at different levels and different journeys. So we try to mix in just different experts to bring that in. And it's all on a baseline of humor and relatedness, because it's not, I mean, we're called the Laughing Couple, so I feel like you'll laugh at least once in the
Oh, yeah.
podcast
Yeah.
because it's a conversation. It's not like our podcast is not
Not heavy.
no, it's not that it's not heavy. We have some heavy topics, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's like a very strict Q&A. It's like this, it's a fireside chat. We just
Yeah.
have conversations, right? So I think it's just
Yeah.
an easy listen. They're usually like
Yeah.
35 minutes. We know that parents don't usually have any more time than that. So yeah, we want to bring that laughter back to people.
Yeah, and Laura, you touched on it a little bit earlier. It's not designed for married people with kids. It's designed for everybody. We bring on experts that talk about being single in a pandemic and how to navigate that, how to find the perfect partner. So we had a wonderful podcast a couple months ago that was talking about the difference between a relationship and a creationship. And
Oh, I love
we've
that.
we've kind of coined that. We haven't coined it, they coined it. We kind of steal it on a regular basis.
No, but we always give credit. We just use the saying all the time. The creationship is huge.
Yeah. So our podcast, I'd say, is a creationship. You know, if you're looking to create a relationship with whomever it is, your kids, your partner, or your future partner, yourself. Yeah, a lot of personal development stuff that occurs on our podcast. The podcast really isn't, it's not for parents. It's for anybody who wants to expand their lives in a humorous way and realize that, like, the stuff they're dealing with, the heavy stuff they're dealing with, other people are dealing with it too. And these two knuckleheads find a way to make it funny.
You're talking about us?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. These two. That's it.
I'm like, are the
So
kids
funny.
here?
Yeah. Our two knucklehead children find it funny. Yeah. So that's it. That's a podcast, really.
Yeah.
I find it so great that you guys really do tune into taking the time to look at your relationship and bring that open, you know, to being transparent with the world, because that has a lot of value in itself, is that you are able to be transparent with everybody, to share, like, hey, these are the tools that we're going through. These are the things that we're discovering about our falls and our missing, but we're going to take the step to work on it. And that only, you know, has me conclude is that might have been some of the backing of taking on some personal development. Would that be true, could you say, or was that created in the relationship from the beginning of the get-go? Because I guess what I'm looking at is, you know, we could see from this past year and a half or 2 years that relationships really did fall apart with the stress of everything that's going on, obviously, in the mindset that's going on. So how did you guys, with maybe your laughter and what you're going forward together, really hold your relationship together?
Well, it hasn't always looked like this. Let's just be straight up. It hasn't always looked like this. It's taken a lot of personal development on my behalf, on Brittany's behalf, individually, mainly mine, individually, before we can kind of figure it out together as a couple. What I say is worked with Brittany and I throughout history, before and after the personal development side of our relationship. We always had a baseline of respect. No matter what, we always respected each other. We always loved each other. And we always communicated from that baseline. That's it. Now, we didn't have the tools to communicate effectively inside that space, but it was always, always, always at the forefront was respect and love. I can tell you, Brittany can tell you this story better than I can tell you this, because she was on the receiving side of it. But before we got pregnant, before Brittany got pregnant and I came along for the ride with our daughter Riley 7 years ago, we were in a very rough place as a relationship. We knew each other from 1993. She lived across the street from my parents. Her parents lived across the street from my parents. So we know each other for a very long time. We dated for a long time. We did the boom boom for a long time before we ever got actually together. But living across the street from each other and seeing each other every single day is different than living in the same house. And I lived a certain way. She lived a certain way. She was brought up a certain way. I was brought up a certain way. And we bring our way of being into a relationship, assuming that that's the way of being, only to find out that other people don't do things the way you do things. And so the first 6 months of us living together in our condo, we hated our lives. I flat out said out loud, I hate my life. And that moment, if I look back and you're falling off of a building and your whole life flashes before you, that moment,
when that happens,
it's the worst.
All the time.
That was the moment that everything changed for our relationship in the proper direction, I'd say.
Yeah.
Was admitting that I was terribly unhappy.
Yeah, same. I think it was also just we were bickering a lot. Like Fran said, we brought a lot of our baggage from trying to work out our idiosyncrasies and how to live together. And it became we were just roommates at this point, and it was very frustrating. We couldn't get past our annoyance for whatever was happening with the other person not bringing to the table. And so I think I'll never forget that day too, because we had already found out we were pregnant, and for those words to come out of his mouth, I was like, I'm never going to speak to Ryan again. I was so mad. I remember leaving, driving to the Walmart parking lot because it was empty, and I was just bawling. Like
Mm.
it was a strange time because this person who I literally thought I was going to marry, spoiler alert, we did, said something that was so like it really shook the
Heavy.
ground. Yeah, it was
Mhm.
really heavy. And so I think that was just like a we needed to come and be like, okay, both of us aren't happy. Like, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to work on this, or are we going to go our separate ways? But again, have that baseline of respect and still co-parent this child. Like, and we were like, ultimately, we dropped our shit and we put in the work that year of being pregnant, and it has been the best ever since. It was a lot for both of us to just drop everything, like the resentment that we had for each other. Like, it was a commitment. It was almost like for better or for worse, like before you get married, this is like the preemptive, for better or for worse. If you're not going to do that, like, you got to do it. You just have to drop, both parties too, like not one person, both of you have to be on the same page, or it's not going to work. And we
Yeah.
did it.
Mhm.
Yeah, and you know what? Sometimes when you say things that are heavy,
Mhm.
they create conflict. And anytime you experience conflict, it's an opportunity to discover what's on the other side of that conflict. But you have to have, for lack of better words, you have to have the balls to make a claim like that, and then
Mhm.
be willing to deal with the impact, and
Mhm.
really deal with the impact of it. Like, be in the discovery of the impact that's there. Because I can say I hate my life today, and Brittany will laugh at me. But then if I said it, it was like, whoa, now this means something's wrong with Brittany that she needs to start to deal with. And there's something wrong with
Right.
Yeah.
Ryan that I need to deal with. And there's
Mhm.
something wrong with Ryan and Brittany that we get to deal with. And yeah, that moment of truth that I had probably been holding in for a long time, that finally came out, was the access to the opportunity for
Oh,
us to
yeah.
discover our relationship.
This
Yeah.
is really powerful because I feel like, what I'm hearing inside this is like how many people, they just want to avoid conflict. That's just how we go about life, right? We need to
Mhm.
avoid conflict. If we can't say anything, we're gonna like ruffle the feathers or whatever it is, right? And then we're just walking around just like pretending.
Mhm.
Everyone's just in this state of like whatever, right? And that's awesome that you recognize there's like this opportunity and just being straight. It's like generosity for each other, right?
Mhm.
To
Yeah,
actually be
well,
able to deal with what's there.
I don't think we had the language or understanding to
Mhm.
get that was as generous as I could possibly be. It
Yeah.
didn't sound like generosity at the time, and Brittany
Yeah.
probably
Mhm.
will not agree that was generous of me.
Right.
But it was as raw and as real as I could possibly be with the person I cared deeply about and
Mhm.
wanted to build something with.
I think we were
Yeah.
both just like, it couldn't get any worse than what
Mm.
was happening. And I think we were both just very tired of just living on the surface, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, it was just like we
Yeah.
were walking around on the surface,
Just
not actually.
surviving.
Yeah, we weren't going any deeper than that because we knew it was there, but I don't know if we were ready to like face it. But we
Yeah.
did. We're here now.
Awesome.
Well, I can hear from everything that
Mm.
Ryan is sharing is that, what you've taken on for yourself and your relationship together, the personal development really had you understand today that breaking point with those words really left heavy weight between your relationship, and
Mhm.
taking on the responsibility, even if it was some time afterwards, had you guys come to the place where you are together more bonded.
Mhm.
Without a doubt.
Which, yeah. And that's where I think is so valuable having people to tune in into a podcast as yours as such, is because as examples of a real relationship between a couple, like many people are going to go through that where you're living with somebody, you may not even want to face them, but hey,
Mhm.
here's a success story that it's real if you really just take the time to do the work, whether it's partner, individual, but really just take the commitment and respect to do the work of like, why did this happen this way? Why did we get confronted?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Right. And
Right.
there's a couple of different ways to do the work. There's the here's where we are, and then
Mhm.
there's the work of like, here's where we want to go. Right. And those are two different conversations. And so inside our relationship, we've come to realize that when we are not creating something new, this is also
Mhm.
stealing from another line in our podcast that we interviewed someone. When we're not creating, we're judging. And we're
Mm.
judging each other, we're judging our relationship, we're judging the outside world. And so we've come to realize that our relationship thrives in the creation of what there is. But in saying that, not everything goes as smoothly as you plan or strategize or unfold.
Right.
And so for us, we do a lot of check-ins. The I love you and you're annoying is actually a check-in. It's a part of the
Yeah.
structure that we
Mm.
have in our relationship, so
I
that
love
those
that.
little
So
teeny
good.
annoyances don't become compounded over time, and then you get into a fight about something
You
and
just get it out.
you bring all
Yeah.
that stuff. So
Yeah.
we try our best, and we're human beings, we're not robots. We try our best on an ongoing basis to check in with what's working, what's not working, what's effective,
Yeah.
what's ineffective,
Mhm.
so that when something heavy comes, it's by itself. We're only dealing
Yep.
with what's heavy. We're not dealing
Yep.
with all the baggage that came before it, because we've been in communication around that. It's not like, oh yeah, but then on Thursday you said this, and 2 weeks ago you said this, and a month ago you said this. That stuff's already been gone. It's already taken care of. So
Mhm.
when real conflict happens, we get to deal with only the conflict that occurs, because everything else is already taken care of.
It's something you have to
Mm.
schedule in. Like we did an episode on the check-ins where essentially it's like we like to do quarterly. I mean, we try our best to do quarterly check-ins. So once every 3 months, if you schedule just like, and it can be like a check-in at date night. Like that can be your date night in. Like if you've got
Mhm.
kids, put them to bed, pour yourself a glass of wine. And the check-in is really important, that it's not you're not accusing your partner of anything. You're saying this is what I feel like I'm dealing with right now. I might need help here, here, and here. How can I help you here? What's going on there? Because like it comes really quickly and things happen. And obviously you and your partner are growing, but it's very easy to grow in different directions. And then your day-to-day structures might not be working anymore. And if
Mhm.
you don't check in with each other, like Ryan said, those are when those like small little things will compound. And when there is a big issue, you never even get to it because it's all just surface shit that you haven't talked about because you haven't checked in.
Are we allowed to say shit
Sorry,
on this
crap.
podcast?
You can be as bold and as authentic as you wish.
Go
Shit,
for
shit,
it.
balls.
Say more.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's key, because you think about it, when you get married, whatever time that is, in the traditional sense of marriage, you get married, you have kids, you grow up, you get old, and all that fun stuff. Who you are when you got married and who you are 10 minutes later are not the same person.
Yeah.
Not the same person.
They're not the same person. I don't know what happened there.
You're not the same person.
Not the same person.
You also
She
have
went,
an-
she went, she went into one
but-
of her
Characters.
personas.
But think about it. Think about it this way: when you get married, whatever age it is, that's who you are in that moment. That's who your career is. That's what your goals are. That's where your passion is. That's all the things that you understand about yourself. To assume 5 years later that you'd be that same person is silly, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
silly. Like, I can't even put it into any other. It's just absolutely silly to assume that you're going to be that
Mhm.
same person. So to assume that you're going to be the same person, and then to assume that your partner is going to be the same person, is ridiculous.
Mhm.
So if you're not constantly checking in on what their goals are, what their dreams are, what their intentions are, their desires, passions, all of that fun stuff, what's working, what's not working, and you assume that they are who they were, like in our case, 5 years ago we got married. If I thought Brittany was the same person 5 years ago, it's foolish of me. So without that check-in, without that daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly check-in, everything's an assumption. And there's a very famous saying about assumptions, and that's essentially what happens. You go into these different. See, we were going in parallel directions, but very quickly those parallel directions can go in opposite directions if
Right.
it's not handled properly. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's essentially how we make things work.
And I love that, because then it's like this, your podcast it literally did come out of that, like constant communication and this co-creation together, and it's like a result of just what you're speaking to, which is checking in and being in communication, all of that. What other
Which I guess they're derived from some methods of personal development and learning that. And so I think that is where we wanted to really speak to you guys today. Like, how does personal development work for a couple? And we knew you guys were on this path and this journey. I have a question just kind of into this. I know, Ryan, that you took on personal development courses. Now, Brittany, as the spouse to that, was that teachings that you were able to see from just your spouse, himself, or like, how did you start to learn that as well?
Like personally, or did I notice changes in Ryan?
Both.
Okay. Did you need to answer?
Nope.
Sorry, Ryan's actually working right now, so he has a job. um, we I think I took like the baseline landmark course years ago. And I still use, I feel like that course, everyone should just take that course. It has so much
Yeah,
like
for
language
sure.
in that course.
Hashtag not sponsored.
Yeah, hashtag not sponsored. It was I absolutely hated it. I'm not gonna lie. I hated
Right.
the
Yeah.
weekend. I was so frustrated. But when you're finished, you just look at things differently, and it's worth the painful long days. Like for
Mhm.
sure it's worth it. In terms of the self-development and how that works, Ryan is really good at communicating. Like he's a very good communicator. He's very level-headed. He's very practical. So he kind of will take the lead there with me. And I've learned to change my communication styles. To be honest, I'm very stubborn. And so it's taken me a little bit of time to kind of learn. Really, at the end of it, Ryan, if he's saying something, his intent is never to hurt me, right? It's never to be mean. Like we don't have that relationship. So when I'm triggered, I know that it's probably deeper than that. Like I know Ryan's not trying to be a dick to me. So oftentimes, like we've communicated that when Ryan approaches things that we want to solve, he is very factual. He's very practical. And sometimes that's infuriating for me because I am leading with my emotions and often those butt heads. So I've said like, you know what, I want to have this conversation, but I just need to take a little step back. We can revisit this, but I can't speak at this exact moment because I'm not as fluent in communication when I'm in those emotions. Ryan has learned that I don't communicate like he communicates. So we kind of have to meet each other at a level where a level of understanding essentially.
Yeah.
And we've really grown into that, and it has taken the work and it has taken those conversations to sit down and be like, listen, baseline, these are my conditions of satisfaction. They weren't met. So what could we do to fix that? And it's more in those communications that we've seen development personally and as a couple, I think. But again, it takes work. People are like, why? Like your relationship's so great. We're like, yeah, but like it also has taken a long time for us to get here. And most people don't put in that time.
Yeah, and you know what? Sometimes when it comes to personal development, I find that people tend to seek it when there's a problem, as opposed to there isn't a problem and I don't want there to be one, so I'm going to seek personal development now. And unfortunately for us, this latest round of personal development occurred as a result of me once again finding that I wasn't happy.
But for different
I was happy with our relationship. I was happy with business. I just couldn't figure out why I wasn't like, you got the house, you got the kids, they're all healthy, they're all happy. Like
you're not happy on paper.
You have all the things that people think you need to have happiness, and yet here you are, and you're not happy. And that was the latest round for me, as I had reached that level of like, where am I? And why am I doing this? And I think that was really hard for Britt, because as a partner, when your spouse isn't satisfied, happy, or whatever the case may be, so often we take that internally and say, well, they're not happy with me.
Yeah.
It's hard not to.
Right. And so
you take it as a part of your responsibility.
100%.
Right. And the truth is, my happiness has nothing to do with Brittany. And vice versa. It's not my job to make Brittany happy. It's my job to be happy and create a space where happiness can show up, so that when she's happy, we can be happy together. And so I realized I realized and recognized that there was something not missing. We were whole, perfect, and complete, but there was something that wasn't there for me that I wanted to seek out. And so that latest round of personal development that we took, we took it on to try to fix something. What was discovered in that time was there really was nothing to fix. There was just something to create. And that's really how everything kind of became what there is today. But I would say this, like from a couple standpoint, Brittany, you can touch on this a little bit more than I can, because you're the one that experienced it. Personal development in a relationship takes both parties.
Yeah.
So when I say I'm committed to personal development, that means that Brittany's committed to my personal development, because the time, the energy, the effort that I have to put forward to doing something that isn't with my kids, that isn't with my partner, that isn't with my business. So it's not driving money. It's not driving happiness. It's not driving relatedness. It's not driving anything inside this household. It's driving everything inside me. But on the other side of that, the business gets better, the kids get better,
yeah.
the wife gets better,
Yeah.
the house gets better, more money's being generated. So you have to be able to be fully into a future fulfilled, to be
Yep.
able to realize, hey, listen, my partner's on a journey here, and they're going to be gone for a couple of days during this process. And so
A couple of days.
a couple of days, a year,
Sometimes it's like
A
couple
year.
of
Okay.
decades.
A couple of
No,
days.
no.
but it certainly
Couple
takes
of-
something.
Yeah.
It certainly takes
Yeah,
something. And I'll
absolutely.
tell you that prior to this latest round of personal development that I went through, which spawned the podcast, I always did personal development for me, by me, on my own. I
Mhm.
never took into consideration Brittany, the children, and how that would impact. And this time, this last round of personal development that we went through, it was a sit down conversation. It was created between the two of us. We were both bought in, and it just, created so much freedom and ease for creation to show up because both parties were bought in or had bought in.
Yeah.
So that's what
Yeah.
I would say from that standpoint is make sure that if you are pursuing that next level up, that you're doing it with your partner.
Yeah, great advice. I love that because I know, through the course that we all three took, there was marriages and there was partners that took on that program and then they would skip out or they would not complete the program because they weren't on board with their partner.
Yeah.
So it's really important to have that commitment from both of you to give whoever's taking on the course to give them that space, but it's an agreement between both of you. Good advice. Yeah.
Mhm,
Yeah.
for sure.
So
So good.
thank you, Brittany, for allowing him.
Thank you for giving us Ryan for that year. Thank you.
She's probably like, never mind, it was for me anyways.
I had a lot of girls' nights that year, so that was nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Built a tribe.
and- so funny. I just wanted to I like to ask some fun random questions throughout these
Yeah,
talks.
absolutely. It can't always be serious
Yeah.
and heavy.
Is you guys have two beautiful, hilarious children. And what are some of the fun things you guys do as a family, or what have you taken on
Outside of
especially-
the podcast.
Yeah, outside of the podcast.
Well, I will say this. Brittany and I have stated from day one, before Riley was born 7 years ago, in our household, there will be love and there will be laughter. And that's what we're going to bring to the table.
Mhm.
Mm,
If anything else comes in, we will hammer it with love and laughter.
Yeah. So good.
we
Love
we
it.
believe strongly that there's a lot of stuff out there that is dark, gloomy, and all that doom stuff.
mhm.
We strongly believe that as long as inside this household there's laughter and love, that the stuff outside will fix itself. We're not responsible for that stuff. We manage the household. So to answer your question, we build everything off of laughter and fun. Literally laughter and fun. Brittany's entire Instagram is based off of
Yeah.
creating laughter and fun with the kids.
I like to
Yeah.
laugh.
Yeah.
I don't know, weird things or fun things that we do is I think that it's just second nature. I don't even know. We're very random, weird. We've always been that way. So I think it's just kind of transferred to our kids. But we like to play games with the kids.
Yeah.
We will have dance competitions, or we'll be in the backyard. On our weekend, we will go out to Canadian Tire. This literally just happened a couple weeks ago. And we're like, what can we do instead of just sitting around? We bought a whole bunch of blow up. I think they're paintball barriers anyway, and we just put them in the backyard, and the kids had to get from one side to the other. We were
While we chucked
chucking
balls
shit
at them.
soft things, but super fun and random. And those are the memories, right, that they remember, because they just
Yeah.
honestly, they just want to be with us at this time, and
Yeah.
that's not always going to be the case, especially when Riley's a teenager. Lord help us. So we try to really live in that space and just do fun active things. We try to be outside as much as we can, not in the winter though. I hate the snow. But yeah, just
Oh,
I
you
don't
guys
know.
must get a lot where you live too, huh? Do you get a lot of snow up there?
We do.
yeah,
We
a
do.
lot. It sucks.
But I will say that there's a layer of competitiveness as well.
Yes. We
I
just
know-
bought a basketball game because again we were what can we do, and we bought this little, it's from an arcade, it's literally from an arcade, and you they're the small little basketballs with the
Small,
hoops.
yeah.
We bought it for the kids. It's
Yeah, right.
us, obviously. We like we'll literally drink on the
You
weekends.
guys play
we'll go
drinking
down-
games?
Yes, yeah, and we'll go and be like, who can do the most in this? And
That's
like we are
amazing.
like cutthroat. So
That's so true.
I
I
think
love
if-
family competition. It makes
Well,
it so much
yes.
fun.
You know, competitions, you learn a
fun.
lot from competition, right? Because we
Yeah.
go back to the conflict conversation that you have. A competition is in itself a conflict, right? So you're battling something, someone, a clock, whatever the case may be. And you know, we keep it fun, we keep it lighthearted, but it 100% is a competition. We all want to win. We're all upset when we don't win. But again, you know, maintaining what happens inside our household, Brittany and I have always believed, listen, if all else fails and our kids have respect and they're not assholes, we did our job. So our job as parents is to keep our kids alive and make sure that they're not assholes when they grow up. That's it. Right.
teach them some occasional things here and there.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you have to learn how to lose.
That's
You have to learn how to have fun. You have to learn how to laugh at things that aren't going the way that you want
Yep.
them to go.
Yeah.
And so
good.
again, you know, you layer that with love, respect, laughter, and competitiveness. It's a winning formula. And if it's not a winning formula, because we don't know, right? 10 years from now, we might find out we did something wrong. But we believe strongly that those four compounded on top of each other, laid on top of each other, they're going to build the foundation of a pretty solid human being. And that's all we're really wanting to do in our lives, is leave a legacy of two kids that actually have respect, and they're just good human beings.
Mhm.
So good.
Yeah. That's
Kudos to you guys.
awesome. I know, seriously.
Boom. Boop. Boop. So I feel like you guys gave us a lot of great takeaways for a couple, you know, and how you've managed to go through your relationship. What could you say are 3 good takeaways as a family continuing on in these new normal times?
As a family, I would say really prioritize your time with each other. Like if anything, this past year has taught us that not taught us, but it's forced us to spend time with each other, because there really wasn't anything else to do. But I think that as bad as it is also amazing. Like the amount of memories that we've had built over this past year with the kids, is something that we'll always remember. But I think prioritizing and scheduling time as a family is so important. Like Friday nights are movie nights, like in our house, and we've just gotten to that stage because Cooper now will sit down and like not be the Tasmanian devil, so we get to watch a movie. And it really stems from like being, I mean, you would know this, but maybe not our places, but I remember going to Blockbuster with my parents and my brother, and like we each got to pick a movie, and it was like a whole production. And we were just speaking about this, and it can still be like that. You go, you take the kids out to Walmart, they each get to pick their favorite snack, like make it a production.
Yes.
You were like, we are watching this movie tonight, like it's exciting. You can still have that, but you just need to put in the work a little bit. Like do fun things. Like I have tickets. We've done like the little ticket thing, but schedule time as a family, weekly or bi-weekly if you can, moving forward. Do you want to add another one?
Yeah, I think from a family is you know, define roles. Really define roles and situations. Create conditions around those roles. So, you know, it's so easy for people to say, well, you got to communicate. Well, what does that mean? Like we talk all the time. Well, communicating and talking is not the same thing.
And those roles might
Right.
change too, right? Like those could be weekly roles or monthly roles or whatever, but that's where your check-ins come into play, right?
Yeah.
Like if something has changed, if there's an extracurricular added, maybe, you know, Wednesday night that you make dinner no longer works because you've got to take her to dance. Sorry, you don't make dinner. Maybe.
I think the biggest thing that I would say, whether it's the global pandemic, whether it's not a global pandemic, when it comes to your family, is a commitment. And I think that all parties need to realize what the commitment is, and all parties need to communicate from that commitment. Because if you're not communicating from an understanding of what the intention is, then you make things up.
Yep.
Like you literally make things up. And so often the biggest fights that you'll ever have with your spouse or with your kids is all inside miscommunication. It's not what you said, it's what they heard. And it's not, and what they heard had nothing to do with what you said, it's what they made up. And so
Absolutely.
unless you're communicating from a place of here's the intention behind this communication, all things will be lost inside that communication. And
Yeah.
so that's the one thing I would say from a family standpoint is really know what the intention is. And then stay inside that, so that I can say something like "I love you" and "you're annoying" to Brittany, and she realizes that it's based in the intention of
Humor.
bettering our marriage, as opposed to
Exactly.
making her wrong for not doing the dishes from
Yeah.
lunch.
Great, great,
So
great.
cool. It's like the constant practice of clearing the air and just like having fun, you know.
Mhm.
Fun.
And as a family, like legit over and over creating that, right?
Mhm.
So that's really cool.
Yeah, you can't just say, "Hey, this is what we're going to do," and then that's like, boop, that's it for the rest of our lives. We're good. No, it's
Yeah.
ongoing. Like people piss each other off all the time.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
life isn't always easy. It's not easy for us, but we're committed to making it easier.
Mhm.
I guess
Yeah.
is how I would word that.
Nice. Committed to making it easier.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well said.
So cool.
Well, thank you so much, guys,
Yeah, this was
for
so fun.
joining us on our podcast, giving us some insight to the truth and the background scenes and the history of your relationship.
Mm.
We are so grateful that you were able to share a lot of your methods and tools that you guys take on in this reality of a marriage.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Yeah. For
And
sure.
congratulations to your success.
Oh,
Thank you.
thanks. And
Thanks.
yeah, and for anyone who hasn't tuned into the Laughing Couple, it is like so jokes, so fun.
Great
yeah.
entertainment.
Yeah, we totally encourage it. It's just like I have it on sometimes when I'm just getting ready and I'm just dying of laughter. Like
Oh,
it's
I'm
just
so
it's so
glad.
good. It's so good. So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you for
that.
who you guys are.
Mhm.
It really is valuable to anybody in all of our
Yeah.
lives. So thank you so much.
Much
Our pleasure.
appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ryan, will you like send us off with your little
Boop, boop,
Oh
boop,
my
boop.
god.
That one?
Please
This is
don't
That
ours.
one.
delete it.
Boom. I love it.
Love it.
Awesome.
All right.
Cool.
Thanks guys. Bye for now.
Thanks.
Bye.
Wow, what an awesome episode it was to speak to Brittany and Ryan with regards to, you know, what they've taken on as a family and parenting with personal development being there and how they've created this podcast together.
I know, so
Right?
valuable and so
Yeah.
inspiring as a couple to, you know, blow up in their success with just sharing authentically their lives. Like,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, one of the things I love that Ryan alluded to was like constantly being in communication and clearing up like anything that has any sort of like conflict or weight so that there isn't this like compounded resentment that's going on. So important for really anyone, not just couples, but like anyone in life and doing that, right, with each other.
Yeah, so important.
Yeah.
I really like that their takeaway was schedule in, you know, time with your family. Schedule in the time that you need to be with your loved ones. Yes, we see our families in and out of our households, but schedule in those important, valuable, quality times together, whether it be, you know, going for a park trail or having movie nights. So,
Yeah, so good.
love that. Schedule in your family time.
Thanks again for tuning in to the Midweek
Week
Pub. Bye for now.
You got to pump it up, don't you know? Pump it up. You got to pump it up.